Today we will be talking about nature versus nurture, as well as the historic artifacts that play into that. Just one second. This is a very interesting topic because it has been a debate for such a long time, since the historic days, on why it's nature versus nurture, why nurture versus nature, and what goes into those concepts. Just one moment here. So, there are many different important studies and facts that go into nature versus nurture. Nature has to do with genetic inheritance. So, genetically, some genetic inherited examples are if my family or my mom or dad are alcoholics, it is more than likely or is very high risk or impossible for me to be an alcoholic or for me to pick up from those bad habits. It also has to do with nurture because that has to do with the environment that I am in. So for adolescents, for example, if my family, mom and dad, are alcoholics and I am in that type of environment, it is more than likely for me observing that type of behavior is for me to adapt to that type of behavior. It can create different cognitive traits as well as personality traits. For example, maybe if I were abused physically by my family, then it is more than likely for me to be abusive toward my children. You know what I mean? It's just a way that we inherit type of behaviors. It also has to do with genes, hereditary genes that play into effect with cognitive traits as well, that can build different types of characteristics within a person. There has been many different arguments since back in historic days. Let me find this really fast. Excuse me. But there are many different arguments that go into this because they said if you have free will and if you are raised in a different type of environment, then it really influences a lot. And historically, both spiritual and scientific knowledge has revolved around the issue of authority, religiously and spiritually. They look at it from a psychological perspective on how it can have an effect on behavior as well as your emotional state of mind. And it also has an effect on your brain development. It is very important in brain development, as well as your psychological development. Ancient historians and Romans have put these concepts into consideration when perceiving early childhood perception on brain processing, because a lot of kids or adolescents that go through hardships and hard times, their brain is developed in a certain way. I wouldn't say it's abnormal, but it is equipped to, adaptation, because we adapt in order to survive. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to put our mental state in a different type of position in order to get through certain things or to accept the way things are in that type of environment. Sometimes there's nothing we can really do about it, but it really has an effect on a child's perception and brain processing. I did research, and back in the Roman times, when someone was mentally ill or mentally challenged, they would be treated unfairly, or they would be treated less as a human. They would be chained up. They would be beaten, just to trying to teach them not a lesson, but try to change their way of thinking. And we later found out that that type of behavior is obviously not the most beneficial way to help someone's brain functioning or their way of thinking, because mental health can be assessed or helped in positive ways. But if not helped, you can go into a depression, low self-esteem. That can cause you to be, what is the word? It is caused you to be more to yourself. Because if you are disciplined and you're scared to be yourself and you're scared to speak your mind, that can honestly take away from you wanting to be socially active, because in a way you're being judged for the way you think and the things you say. So you're worried that other kids in your environment will judge you for the way that you think and for the things that you say, because if you're punished for it. This also can cause anxiety, like a lot of anxiety, because you have that fear and your lower level of self-esteem. And that ties into depression. And a lot of depression cases go into a suicidal mental state. When you don't get the help, it can cause guilt, insanity, and different types of negative thoughts. On the other hand, there's scientific interests as well that have to do with religious and spiritual mental health. It was a little bit complex. There are different types of traditions, and points of view that have to do with the religions, because there's a lot of religion that do different types of practices. Some do prayer, some do fasting, some do ceremonies. There's just certain things that different religions do in order to make the right intentions and to, in a way, try to heal that broken spirit. Let's see. I am just trying to answer all of the questions that are here. I honestly believe that, or it is believed, not I believe. Studies say that you don't have to be in adolescence in order to be developed in a certain way, or to be mentally ill or have mental challenges. That can occur at any time in your life. A lot of people go through hardships at an older age and, build different types of trust issues and different type of survival instincts due to experiences. You know what I mean? And those can happen later on in life. That can cause you to think certain ways. For example, personal example, I was jumped one time at a IHOP parking lot. And if I always tell myself, if I would have just got in my car and locked the doors, that person wouldn't have been able to open my car door, jump into my car, and just ambush me. So now I have like a phobia to where every time I get into my vehicle, I automatically lock the doors, because honestly, that just, it always plays in my mind as soon as I get in a car every single time. And that's something that I learned in my 20s. I grew up in Flagstaff, a very safe environment. I was blessed to have both parents. I was very privileged, and I've never experienced that type of violence before. So that's something that really had a huge effect on my mentality as well. It just showed me that the world isn't all peace and kind and quiet, and people do have really bad intentions out there. Nature versus nurture. Nurture, my environment was just very safe. And now, moving it out to the valley, there's a little bit of a higher crime rate. Hereditarily, I would say that I was very happy, very educated, and both of my family members are very ambitious when it comes to education, and Their field of work, very hardworking people. I can say that I have contributed some of those um, practices as well. But nature versus nurture can go into many different things. It definitely has an effect on one's personality as well as behavior. It just honestly depends on the type of environment as well as the type of family or friends that you come from or have. Also has to do with a lot of experiences as well.